You want to kick it off, James, with the Olympia question you had, the qualification question?
Yeah, so you know what I've noticed this year is with the new Olympia qualification rules, it seems like either guys are underestimating the level of competition, they don't understand the rules now, or they think it's still the same as it used to be, which is all wrong. Because there's multiple guys out there right now, I'm not going to say any names, that are still saying, "Oh, I'm going to get my Olympia qualification this year." And the Olympia qualification runs out August 29th. So you only have until August 29th from now to either win two shows or get a shitload of points to qualify you, and you're going to need at least 20 points, and that's a lot to qualify for the Olympia. So I'm seeing a lot of guys saying that they're still interested in going to Olympia this year, and either they have 0 points or they've done a bunch of shows, only have a couple points, and I'm like, you're not understanding the tall order that you're seeking right now. And I just think that there's so few shows now between now and August 29th that these guys are having delusions of grandeur if they think they're still going to qualify for the Olympia. So I think guys need to understand that their strategy needs to change. And when you guys brought up the San Antonio Pro earlier, I think that show specifically is going to be extremely competitive. And the reason why is because that show specifically is the first one for next year's Olympia. And all the guys, if they're smart, are going to go, I want to get my points as soon as possible in the fall so that next year at this time, I know exactly how many points I need or don't need to qualify for the Olympia. That's the right way to go about it, in my opinion. But a lot of these guys are still saying, like, oh, in next month or two, I'm still going to qualify. It's like, you don't have any points. You haven't even won a show. You haven't even done it. Like, you did one show, got 16th. Like, it's not happening, dude. So anyway, that's my rant about it. I've seen a lot of guys on social media just acting a fool, and I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that.
I think the only show that's an automatic qualifier that's left is Dubai Pro. I'm pretty sure that's it.
Yeah, because there
And
was
that's
only
that's for 2027.
Yeah. So you have to either win two shows or win the Dubai Pro if you want to qualify.
Mhm.
If you don't have any points yet, I mean, you're probably not going to have enough because there's been guys. I mean, I've seen some guys online or just from looking at the shows. I'm like, geez, what have they done? 5, 6 shows already? I'm like,
Yeah,
damn,
yeah.
competing like every weekend.
It's crazy. And to your point, the tier one shows that exist, there's only four.
Yeah.
And the guys who are doing the tier one shows are usually your front runners anyway. So if you're not one of those guys and you haven't made that drastic of an improvement since you last were on stage, I think the words that James used are accurate. That's a tall order. Um, and I think I think there's maybe another way to look at it too. Maybe some guys are just competing it because they love bodybuilding, they want to get on stage. But if they're saying to everyone, they're making the claim that they're going to be at the O this year as a competitor, it's kind of late in the game. And we all know Texas Pro is usually a stat show. All right, it's that's just what it is. Um, I agree, San Antonio, for the rationale you said, James. I agree with you. The guys who are trying to rack up points because they know that this year it's not happening, they're going to do. I mean, we even see it after the Olympia where guys who even they were at the Olympia, like, well, I'm already in shape. Let me go ahead and do this now while I'm still in shape. And that way I have that much more time between the end of this season and next Olympia. And so, because the guys who are placing outside of the top five at the O, but are in the top 10, are probably going to win whatever show they go do right after the Olympia and get started on their qual. So I think you're right. I think if you're looking at it from a strategic standpoint of I want to be at the O, and you haven't competed yet, and that's what you think is going to happen, there are only a few guys that come to mind. Laszlo comes to mind. He could probably pull it off. He might be able to pull that
I think
off.
isn't he competing this weekend?
He's competing this weekend, I think, in
Yeah,
Portugal.
overseas.
And
Yeah, I
then
believe so.
and I'm all but sure he's gonna do Texas again.
Yeah.
And I don't know anybody, I don't know what the lineup's gonna look like yet, obviously, but the improvements we've seen, and I get it, there are posts, but from what I've seen, it's like, dude, he's that's I don't know. I saw the lineup for Portugal. I don't think anybody's gonna beat him. So there's one win, probably. But aside from guys like that, um, yeah, I'm on the same page as you, James. I just think it's just like, hey, you got to be honest with yourself.
Yeah, and what I think the guys aren't understanding also is the caliber of guys who are going to be competing between now and August 29th. Just like you said, Laszlo, he's probably somebody who has underperformed his capability the last several years. He's an Olympian, but his potential is like top Olympian if he gets his act together, right? Not that he doesn't, it's just, peaking is very strange process sometimes. So if he can get it all put together, I mean that's one guy right there who has a capability of pulling off the two wins
Yeah.
between now and August 29th. He has every capability of doing that. You got these guys from Brazil, you got Menegate, and you
Mhm.
got Zanka. These guys are killers, man. They're Olympians. They're top. I know Menegate's top 10 in the world, and Zanka, I think he got top 15 before. Those guys are unreal. I mean, I know they're coming to the States. They're going to be doing Tampa. They're going to be doing Texas. Laszlo's going to be doing Texas. Um, I'll say this now, Texas is going to be absolutely insane
Yeah.
this year. The
Yeah,
amount
it'll
of
be one of the biggest of the year for
the
sure.
the the amount of guys and the depth of that lineup is going to be very, very, it's going to be a gauntlet for sure.
Yeah.
But the caliber of these guys competing between now and August 29th is just it's going to be a tall order for anybody to say, "Oh, I'm going to walk on stage and get my Olympia qualification." Well, good luck because there's quite a few Olympians that are going to be there too. There's another one from Ukraine,
His name
Kudayev.
starts with a K.
Yeah.
I think his name's Kudayev. He lives in
Yeah,
Miami.
yeah.
Yeah.
He won the San Antonio Pro last year, I believe, and he's doing Tampa. And I mean, he's ridiculous. So, and you never know who's going to come out of the woodwork. Maybe they want to warm up before the Olympia, but
What
um,
about Anton too?
yeah, Anton. There's
Make my
guys that could jump into any of these shows, and it's like that's why I think when people abuse social media and say that, oh, it's so easy to go pro, it's so easy to win a pro show, or it's so easy to go to the Olympia. No, the hell it's not. And if it was, it definitely isn't anymore. Um, I think, we need to have a come to Jesus thing with people on social media and make them understand like this is not a given anymore. It
And
never
see,
was, but
that brings up
people
a good point. Like,
people need
it's
to stop
social
taking
media.
people
the
need to
whole
stop taking this thing for granted.
the whole pro card thing is absurd. They give out way more pro cards now because there's way more competitors.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Still
Well,
really fucking hard.
and I don't even know if I should say this. I might have to edit this out. If you look at some of the shows that this year where people got pro cards in classic at least, it was a little lackluster. And
Agreed.
if
Yeah,
they
the
had to
junior
step
shows were
on,
pretty lackluster.
yeah, if some of those
Yeah,
guys had to step on stage the same year that they got that card this year, they would not even pop up on it wouldn't even be close.
yeah.
And
I think you could say the same thing about people getting pro cards 20 years ago too. I'm sure there's every once in a while there just was not a competitive show.
yeah, I just feel like we're seeing that more. And so, and it's not to say that, especially back in the day when there was no classic, when it was just open, that
Yeah.
was more understandable because open is such a huge, like, you get your pro
Mhm.
card in open and you think you're going to be able to go stand on stage with some of the guys who have been doing it for 2 3 years.
Yep.
That's hard. That's a hard ask. But regardless, I think it does beg the question of, how you interpret and kind of receive and process what people put on social media. I take it all with a grain of salt because sometimes you're like, is this person just doing this for, are they trolling everybody? Are they just
Yeah.
trying to start a conversation that, isn't even based in reality just because it gets attention or views or whatever.
And to your point, Dom, this is something I've noticed is like whether they're amateurs or pros, just because you know somebody that has a pro card, just because you know somebody who has made the Olympia, does not mean that you're going to. And people need to realize that it's a very difficult thing to turn pro. It's a very difficult thing to do a pro show competitively. It's a very difficult thing to make the Olympia.
I
And
think
I
more
think
competitive.
social media perpetuates this, oh, it's so accessible for anyone now. And it's like, no, it's not. It's a very difficult thing. Look at Joe right now, all right? And Joe has put on immense amount of size in the last year, okay?
Joe
Now,
ate himself.
yes, exactly. But let's keep in mind here, Joe's also 6'4", 6'5". I
Mhm.
asked Joe specifically, I'm like, hey man, are you going to go to the Open? And he goes, no, because I would have to be 300 plus on stage shredded, and I just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So even somebody like Joe, who is a pro, who rightfully so is in the league, and he has put on an immense amount of size, it is not going to be easy to get that size to look exactly how it's supposed to, capped out, and still, make the Olympia or do something like Joe can do it, but it's very difficult. And that's why I get annoyed with social media because everyone seems to think that this is a game that's so easy. Anybody can do it. It doesn't matter about your genetics. It doesn't matter about your work ethic when it actually does. And there's so many factors and variables that go into this stuff. I'll stop ranting here, but the point is, social media has made it seem like bodybuilding is so easy, and it's not.
No.
Yeah.
I
And
agree. And so, sometimes in the gym too, people come up to me, people that I guess kind of understand bodybuilding but don't really totally understand it. They're like, oh, like when's your next show? I'm like, oh, I'm thinking this, that. And they're like, oh, you're gonna go in? You're gonna go to the Olympia? I'm like, I want you to understand that like if you win a pro show, you are one of the best 20, 25 people in the entire world. like
Yes.
like that's like saying like, oh, I'm gonna go be like an all pro in the NFL. Like there's very few people that ever happens to.
Yeah.
Like yeah, I'm gonna go try my best, but I'm not like, oh, I'm gonna go win. Like that's
Mhm.
very, very, very small percent chance of that ever happening.
Yeah.
yeah, that's yeah.
Mike just made a really good point. Like in the NFL, the best players in the NFL are all pro. In the Pro Bowl, right? Those are the best of the best in the NFL, and that's a professional sports league, right? In baseball, like, Golden Gloves or, Silver Slugger, all of those things. Those guys are the best of the best. And it's like maybe we need to have that in bodybuilding because it's like just because you're a pro does not mean you're going to make the Olympia, right? And I know, like you say, you're an Olympian. That's kind of the same thing, but I mean, that's a really good point that Mike made about people being all pros. Like, it's not easy to be an all pro. It's not easy to be an Olympian. You
Yeah.
know, it's not easy to be a pro in the first call out of a show. It's not.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like I feel like being a first call out in a pro show is probably comparable to being all pro in the NFL if you look at it from
Yeah.
a first standpoint, honestly. An Olympian is like the best of the all pros.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's there's so many pro classic athletes out there, and what is it? What are they capped out at now? Is it 70 this year to the
I
Olympic?
think I think they said it's based on points, so it's like the
Yeah.
top 25 on points, and then whoever has an
And then
has the automatic qual. So I think there's like 20 guys or so who get automatic quals, and then it's 25. So
yeah,
it's not probably like 40, 45 guys.
yeah, at the most. Yeah,
Yeah, at the
yeah,
most.
yeah. So 40 out of how many active classic guys are there?
So I
I'm
tried
sure
to
there's a
find that
shit
number.
ton.
I
There's
tried
got
to
to
find
be
the number, couldn't
hundreds
find it.
to 1,000, I would think at least.
For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. So
So
that's and that kind of segues into what we were saying earlier before. It's like it's hard to do that, even as a guy who's sponsored and really only focuses on bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Now do that and have a career.
Yeah.
Qualify for the Olympia and have a 9 to 5 or whatever it is, and have a
yeah,
family, a
qualify
wife
on
or
point.
kids. Well, yeah, qualify, period.
Yeah.
Because you have this kind of at the very least bifurcated focus.
Hmm.
I'm a bodybuilder, but I'm a chiropractor or I'm an engineer or I'm a dot 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 whatever it is because I got to provide for myself and provide for what I need to do to be a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
And so, the question I've had before, mine was a little more pointed. Somebody asked me a couple weeks ago. I never really gave a long-winded answer. I just gave them a short answer. But how are you, doing the whole active duty thing and you're a pro bodybuilder or pro classic physique bodybuilder? And I'm like, that's actually when you think about it, that's a good question. I don't think about it. I just kind of live and do it. But
You're
it's a fair
normal.
question from somebody who's, a bit more removed from competitive bodybuilding. Maybe they're a bodybuilder in the sense that they go to the gym and they do the gym thing and they try to eat and do that stuff as they think it's supposed to be, and maybe they're nailing it, but they haven't stepped on stage. And that is a different animal, right? Um, is there if you guys were to answer that person, how would you answer that as, yeah, this is what I do and this is how I make it work as a competitive bodybuilder?
Uh, you make the time for the things that you want to do, I guess. Like
Yeah.
I don't do other things, especially when I'm in prep. Like I
Yeah.
go to work and I go to the gym and I do my cardio and that's it. I don't do other things. People invite me to parties. If I can make it, I'll make it and I'll bring my food with me, but that's very rare and it's usually only for family. It's just
You
you
get
make the time
invited,
for
you
what
get
you want
invited to
to
parties?
do. Very rarely, the longer I've been bodybuilding. I think people are used to hearing no, so they just don't invite me
Oh
anymore.
yeah. Oh
No,
yeah.
I totally agree with Joe. I mean, that's it, when you have done this for so long, I mean, you become, I don't want to say the sport, but like it to be great at something, you kind of have to lose yourself in it and obsess with it.
Mhm.
And just like Joe said, I go to the gym, I go to work, I go back to the gym, I come home and eat, I go to sleep. That's
Mhm.
literally my day to day. And I'm not really mad about it. Like, sure, I mean, I could go out on the weekends and, you know, go to lunch with people at work and go eat some bullshit food, but like, do I want to do those things or do I want to do well in my shows? And
Right.
that's where I draw the line. And like, it's like, no, I have goals and, um, you know, I'm going to look back on this and say it was worth it because I did something that a lot of people can't do. A
Yeah.
lot of people can go down the street and go get barbecue.
Hmm.
Anybody can do that. But can people be a pro athlete in the hardest bodybuilding federation in the world?
Yeah.
What
Yep.
do you got, Mike?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you guys. Like, it has to be a lifestyle that you actually like.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if you were to ask me what does my ideal day look like, I mean, it's like getting up, meal prepping, seeing patients in the morning, having an awesome training session in the afternoon, coming home, eating some more meal prep, and like doing it again the next day. I don't know. It sounds like a great day to me. Like
What
it
do you,
doesn't. It's not like a difficult thing for me. It's what I enjoy. So I think if it's when you're doing something you actually enjoy doing and consciously want to do, then it's honestly kind of easy in a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Not easy where like it's an easy task, but it's easy in the sense where like no,
mentally?
this is what I
Yeah.
want to do. I
Yeah.
get to do this. I
How do
enjoy
you
doing
guys
this.
feel to that point? How do you feel on the weekend when you don't have to go to work? I don't like know what to do with my free time. It's almost easier like when I have to go to work, honestly.
I
Like
100% agree. It's
I
funny
don't know
you
how to
say.
describe it, but it's just like I feel like a lazy piece of shit because I'm like sitting on the couch, but it's like I can't like go do too much because I'll miss a meal or it's just so I just sit on the couch.
Yeah.
That is
I actually think bodybuilding sometimes is easier when you do have a very specific job
When you have
because
things
you're
to do,
on
yes.
yeah.
specific
Yes.
timelines. Yeah.
Hmm.
And you're
So
not focused on like being hungry or being tired or whatever, like prepping for a show. You're
Yeah,
focused on the task at hand and the
correct.
bodybuilding fits into it. I actually
Yeah,
think like obviously some jobs, yeah, it might be difficult. Like if you work construction, yeah, it's
yeah,
not gonna help.
correct. Yeah,
But
I
if you're
sit at
working a
desk.
job where there's a normal structure to it, it actually makes
Mhm.
it easier.
that
Yeah,
that is it. The routine slash structure part. Because
structure is critical.
dude, I just PCS though. I just change of duty station essentially, where I now am at a different command and whatever. So during that period of time, I have no work to do. I don't until I check in. And then when I check in, they're like, all right, go on house hunting leave for 10 days. And there's no work. So I've actually been going into work even though I don't have to be there. It just makes it easier to be like, all right, I got these things to do. It's just like, in fact, it's funny. Chris called me the other day to talk about a check-in thing. And he said, what was it about? It was about a day of the week. How'd you feel on Wednesday? I said, Wednesday? Oh, you mean leg day? That's what it is, right? It's like, yeah,
Like
I don't, regular people, I hate saying regular, normies have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. For me, it's like, oh well, no, Thursday's a rest day. That's how I remembered it was Thursday.
Yeah,
So it's when I to try to make it relatable and practical for someone who doesn't exist in that sphere. I and even with clients, I'm like, you try to build everything around your life, but the higher you move up in the sport, the less that happens, and it's more of your life starts to become that thing, and you try not to lose the other elements that are really important. And that's mostly more toward when it's time to like prep, right? Off season, it's a little bit easier. There's a little bit more latitude, but even that becomes harder because, as you know, Joe, when you have to push the envelope with food, you don't want to do stuff.
no,
It's like, I don't want to, I just had 7,000 calories. I don't want to do anything with anyone. I just want to sit here and figure out how am I going to get this next meal down. Right?
I don't
It's
even want to get off the couch to pee. I will hold it because it's a struggle to push myself off the couch.
diapers,
Yeah,
they come back. So
right.
it's one of those things where if I had to give somebody a full answer that was more digestible, like, it just depends. Like James said, and I really love this kind of I'll call it a quote for lack of a better descriptor, but you do what you want. And
Hmm.
so when what you want to do is what you're doing, you don't, it's not a chore, like Mike was saying. You don't, it's fun. I enjoy doing this. And for me, I think it's kind of the same answer as you guys. It's automatic now. And it was automatic even before I competed. I was kind of living this way anyway. It just changed in terms of structure a little bit and how I was doing things. And I just kept doing it. And so you don't think about it. But when you start, everybody says it's discipline. And I would agree, that's where it's discipline. But after a while, it's not even discipline anymore. It's just routine. I'm just doing what I am automatically geared to do. Um, which this is a question I have that comes, this is a segue into something else. When would you say that as a competitive bodybuilder, it's no longer a hobby, it becomes a career?
Well, I think career is probably the wrong word because a career, that means you're making money off of it. That means your income and all that stuff. I don't really think bodybuilding's a career for 95% of people. I think if you have all these endorsements and stuff, like, back in the day, like I remember I talked to Jay Cutler in Vegas about this, and he said that, he asked me what my job was, and I told him I was back then I was in construction. He goes, "Well, make sure you have a good job because those six-figure endorsements that we used to have, me and Ronnie back in the days, like they don't exist anymore." He's like those supplement deals and stuff. He's like they really don't exist, with social media. So unless you're somebody on social media that that's pretty much the reason you bodybuild is for your YouTube and your Instagram and stuff, and to get clients and coaching and all that, whatever. I don't think bodybuilding is really a career. I think you can have a pro career competitively, I think, and that's a different thing. You can have a pro career as in like, you define that competitively. And I think to answer your question, Dom, it becomes that when you start, it's like we've talked about, habits and how things become automatic when it's just like, oh, it's July. I'm supposed to be in prep. I'm gonna be doing these shows because that's what I do every year in July. Like, I just think you kind of know, and you it becomes those habits that you just, you don't know what to do, other than that. And I think that that's pretty prevalent. I've seen all these guys compete the same time of the year, the same shows every year. And it's like it just seems like that's what they do, you know?
So it's funny you say that because in the move, I found something that I thought was gone forever. Do you guys remember the old muscular development magazines and flex magazines?
Mhm.
You mentioned Jay Cutler, and I found all these old,
Oh,
I
Nice.
kept all of this stuff. Troy Alves,
I remember
his
Troy Allen.
meal
He was
program
shredded.
and workout plan that I'm sure is bullshit. Dennis James, like I've got
throwback.
tons of these things that I'd ripped out and saved. I have like all kinds of crazy stuff. So it's funny you mentioned that. Oh, I scanned this in and printed it. Phil Heath's workout plan before he was even Mr. Olympia. So to your point, for me, my response to the career thing, I think a lot of guys think that their career is in bodybuilding and they've done one show.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't have a career in bodybuilding and competitive bodybuilding. Um,
Mhm.
Not only have you not got a pro card, not to say that you got to have a pro card, because there are guys making money as NPC competitors somehow getting sponsorships and endorsements. But I think the key for me is it doesn't become a career until two kind of wickets are hit. One, it supplies you with the means to sustain yourself and your family, um, primarily, and then it's at a certain tier at which you're doing those things consistently. I think if you have both of those, and maybe you could argue that it's a career path, but let's be honest, like any sport, professional
Sport.
sport, that career is short-lived. It
Yeah.
does not go very long, whether it's because of injury or just performance. You can't perform unless, the obvious example that somebody's going to throw out there is, well, LeBron James. Well, okay, it's an exception to the rule. And that sport, basketball, has changed considerably from what it used to be in terms of physicality. So, barring those one-offs, it's not a career that's generally a long duration. And that's how I kind of think of it. If you're claiming that bodybuilding is your career, you got to at least be hitting those two things. Otherwise, I don't know how you define a career.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think of in terms of it actually being a career, there's very few people that can make that like their main career. You have to
Yeah.
be usually like one of the top few open bodybuilders, one of the
Yep.
top few class guys. Not only that, like placing wise, but also social media wise, obviously
Yes.
nowadays. Both of those things. And there are some guys who are making a boatload of money, I'm sure, but they're very far and few between. Very,
Yeah.
very far. I'd say your average person, like your pro, it's probably maybe a supplement to their career. They
Yes.
may get more clients, they may have some small endorsement deals, free supplements, shirts, whatever they're getting. They might be a small portion of their income, but for it to be your main income, you probably have to be living pretty light, to just survive off of that
Yeah.
alone. You have to be pretty bare bones. But
I
I
agree.
do think it could be a good supplement for your main career, but for it to be your main career, pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. And to
So,
Dom's point, even if that's your main, say you're one of those big money makers, were you making a couple $100,000 a year for maybe 8 to 10 years? That's not a
yeah.
career. You better be smart with that money because that is not a career.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to retire on that unless you lived very, conservatively that entire time.
Yeah, you have to
So
make some really smart investment choices.
yeah, yeah, you gotta, open up your own supplement company, which a lot of these guys are doing, or something like that. I don't
Yeah.
know.
So, all right, I'm gonna get into the fun, the good, juicy stuff now. So I just actually went and trained with some guys today, and this is a big deal to me. Um, where do you guys stand on recording your sets? I think it's a necessity, but not for the reason that a lot of people do it. A lot of people record their sets so they can post them on social media, and for whatever reason, I don't know. And I don't think that there's anything wrong per se with that when you do that every once in a while. But if that's the primary reason, I think you're missing the massive benefit of recording your sets so that you can look at it and say, oh, this is, especially as a beginner and even intermediate kind of physique competitor, I can look at this and I can send it to my coach if I have a coach, and we can assess my form and my technique and make corrections so that eventually I can kind of auto correct while in the gym. I know what it's supposed to look like. I know what it's supposed to feel like. And so I can make these changes. Do you see that the same, or you think it's even necessary to record your sets?
It's funny you say that because I just started recording my workouts maybe like a month and a half ago, and the primary focus of that was to post stuff on Instagram. And then I recorded every single one of my workouts, and I was like, well, what am I going to do? Post another leg day? So then I was like, I had Corinne, my girlfriend, with me, and I was like, it was back day, and I was like, record this set. I want to see if I'm getting engaging my lats correctly. And now like the whole focus has changed to like I don't really record sets unless I have a reason why, whether it's to post something on Instagram to show form or
Mhm.
for my own personal use of making sure that I'm executing the exercise correctly. But I
Yeah.
kind of found it that way because I ran out of ideas to like post on Instagram, which was funny. I
Yeah.
was like, I can't just keep posting a back day every 8 days. Like, what am I going to do? So,
I know Mike's got. I want to hear Mike's take on this one.
All right, so I'm
You know, I
definitely in
follow
the boat
all your
of
stuff super close. So
mhm.
I'm definitely in the boat of 100%. It's very, very important. I always come back to this, but I'm obviously the background of football, and in football, pretty much most of our time is spent actually watching film. You're only on the field a very small amount of time. Most of our time is in meetings or watching film. So I come from the background of the second practice was over especially during college when I was really getting good. I would go straight upstairs to our meeting room area, like our little defensive line room, and I'd pull up all the clips from that day's practice and watch every single one 3 times all the way through. It would take me probably 30 minutes after practice, so I'd like rush upstairs and go check it out. And when you actually see yourself from a third person, you can be a lot more objective rather than just, oh, that's how that felt. No, like this is how it actually looked, and you're seeing it from like the eye in the sky. And when you're on the field, you're thinking, okay, my first step's in the right place, my hands are in the right place, my head's in the right place, like I'm in the right gap. And you watch it, and you're like, that looked like dog shit. And you're like, that looked terrible. And then like the only way to know is, okay, now I'm going to compare that to my next practice when I'm consciously thinking about that step in the right exact spot, and it looked a little better. And then the next practice looked a little better, a little better. And then from practice 1 to 10, you're like, wow, I actually am worth a shit now,
yeah.
compared to the first one. So I take that same process to bodybuilding because for me, like obviously I'm an athlete and athletic, but being an athlete doesn't really come very intuitively to me. I have to really break it down and think about like the minute little details of where my hand is and where my ankle is or my upper arm, whatever, all those things. I have to really do that because I'm not like naturally very athletic. I've gotten athletic just through putting in the work. And that's kind of how I see things. I break things down very mechanically. So I do that by filming sets and just watching them and getting really, really good at it. And to me, too, that's the fun part, to be honest. Like, I enjoy the learning curve of getting better at certain exercises. So that's why, like, every what I would do in football, especially to go back to that, every practice, our coaches would always say, I want you to focus entirely on exactly one thing that you're going to get better at that day. Obviously, you want to get better at everything, but there's like one particular thing I'm going to particularly focus on and get really good at. And whatever it is, your hand placement, whatever. And I do the same thing with bodybuilding. Like today, when I go in, I'm going to be really, really intentional about lifting my rib cage during this exercise, whatever. And I get really hyper focused on it. And like that's what makes that session fun to me, is
Yeah.
getting really good at that one particular instance. So that's really why I like bodybuilding, because every day there's something I get better at and hyper focus on.
Mhm.
I like that. That actually, I would have put it a little different, but you're saying effectively the same thing. I just didn't think about it that way. It's that it's that sensation where you nail it for the first time and you feel it happen. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, that's it. And you go back and you watch the video and you're like, yep, that was it. And you now can you can connect those two things, but in the moment when you nailed it and you feel it happen, like when you engage your lat for the first time and you've been doing back for 3 years and you realize, oh, that's what it feels like. That to me is like, oh, it's like training for the first time
Best feeling.
ever again.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I'm hooked. I want to go do another back day. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Pumped about
dude,
it.
that I 100% agree with that. And I try. I think that's if when I try when I get asked that question about any training questions, I'm like, well, have you seen? It'd be like posing, right? The example I like to use is if you have never posed before and your first time posing, you're going to just do it without a mirror. So you can't even see what it looks like. You just feel your way through it. And then somebody shows you what you look like. And you're like, oh, well, that doesn't look right. Well, yeah, because you never saw it. You saw someone else do it, but you never saw yourself do it. You just thought, well, this feels like what it should. This looks like this. Well, this feels like that. So you wouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that with training. So I think it makes perfect sense, and when you can see that come together and then feel it happening, it's like the best. It's absolutely awesome. I'm assuming you guys are on the same page with that, James and Joe, or do you
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
different thought?
That Joe.
I mean, your example with the lat is perfect because I have always trained my back by using my rhomboids and my upper back, and it was literally this off season where like I was pounding it into my head on how to train my lats, and now I can do it fairly well, and it just feels so much better, and
Yeah,
seeing it on video and understanding the cues, like my cues are always keeping my rib cage up and the shoulder that I'm working down because I
yeah.
want to lift that shoulder up and then engage my upper back. I've always done it, and my body wants to move that way, and I'm like retraining it to move the way it's supposed to. So
I'm in that boat with you. Like
yeah,
it finally this year was like, oh, that's and
yeah,
you learn in school. Like if you I had anatomy and physiology and a bunch of
yep,
other, science and physical sciences and stuff, whatever. And it's like, I get it. The scapular depression and, think, okay, what's the primary move? What's the lat's primary movement? What is it actually doing? And
hmm,
okay, but until you can practically apply those things in a way that makes sense and you can understand, they don't mean
hmm,
nothing. And
no,
so I'm in the gym and I'm thinking, well, yeah, that's what's happening. I'm doing it, right? And it's like, no, you're
yeah,
not. And then you when you like you said, it's like when you have, oh my gosh, yeah, now I gotta drill this shit in.
yeah.
Sorry, I gotta
Feel
drill
like
this
a weak
in.
bitch for a while until you actually can train with normal weight.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the worst
Everything
part. Like,
everything feels heavy now.
yeah, yep.
To your guys' point, I think part of being a professional, and we all are, is realizing that you're never the master of all of these things.
Hmm,
And what I mean by that is I'm 37 years old. I've been training since I was 16. That's 21 years.
hmm,
And I'm still learning stuff in the gym with, these new types of equipment that comes out, how to use it, and then like you can move the seat, you can move the pad, you can move the handles, you can move all this new technology and stuff that comes out. You can never say that like, oh, I'm the master. And part
hmm,
of being a professional is having that humility to know that you're always gonna be learning new equipment and new ways to work your body and your muscles. And when you do finally find something that, like, for example, like we're talking about lats, since you were talking about it, when you finally find some stuff and ways to engage your lats that you've never done in however many years you've been training, it's like a light bulb goes off and you have an epiphany, and it's like the
Mhm.
renaissance, and you're like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. Like I've figured out how to train my lats or engage my lower lats. Like, and I think that's part of being professional is knowing that you're always going to be learning and you're always going to be needing to get better. If you ever think that you're the master, you're going to probably find that out in a harsh way that you're not, whether
Yeah.
it's on stage or whether you hurt yourself or whatever it is. But I think that's part of being professional is knowing that you will always be learning and needing to get better with training because training is endless, you know?
Well, you
Yep.
you mentioned, getting hurt and injuring yourself. And that is huge, right? And it oftentimes goes back to it's usually two things, not giving your body a chance to recover, but oftentimes I think it's more of training foolishly, right? Doing the old method of I'm just going to yank this and jerk that, and I'm going to power through everything, and I'm going to load up everything I can on this thing, and I'm going to go at it with absolute everything I have. And don't get me wrong, it is fun sometimes to grab something super heavy and move that thing and be like, yeah, you know what? I'm grabbing the 180s today and I'm flat benching. I know it's not in my program, but I'm feeling good. I'm gonna do it. And it's like, okay, I know it's fun, but what do we end up seeing? Time and time again. Oh, so and so had to drop out because of an injury. They pulled a hamstring, tore a hamstring. Oh, the tendonitis has gotten so bad, and because they had an issue and they kept training that way instead of learning from what their body was trying to tell them and listening to their body, and they just kept pushing through. And now it's tendinosis, and now it's a tendon rupture, and you got to go have surgery, or your bodybuilding career is over. Um, and that's unfortunate because nowadays there's no reason. The resources are endless on this kind of thing. It's hard to I can't imagine if I grew up as a teenager now versus when, the internet was still on, DSL. And I
Yeah.
could hear the modem. It's like, oh my gosh. So, hence why I have all the pages from the magazines. So that to me is, and again, I want to leverage Mike because we got him here and he's honestly, you're an expert in these things. You probably see joint issues every day, all day. And
Yeah,
so
definitely.
that's another thing, right? Somebody who's training and doesn't learn to train intelligently doesn't mean train lazy, doesn't mean train low effort, low intensity. It means you're training in a way that you think it's working, but it's at the cost of your your body and in the way that you don't want to do that. That's not the pain you want. So I guess the question I would start with for you, Mike, if you don't mind, is how do you when you have somebody who's done that, right? They put in themselves in that position. How do you deal with the long term kind of irreversible damage that you might see? Is training no longer an option? Is there a focus maybe they should have that can give them an opportunity to keep moving forward?
So I think it first depends. You have to see what exactly is the problem first. Is it a muscle issue, tendon issue, nerve issue, bone? So we have to address what the actual diagnosis is, because then the steps to take care of it are different. So
Right.
there's more irreversible stuff, sort of like if there's a bone structure issue, that's more of a long term. Hey, we may just have to modify things. You might not be able to train the same ever again because of
Yeah.
the bone structure. But if it's something like a tendonitis, a tendinosis, those can be worked and should be worked properly. Just to kind of touch on the tendonitis, tendinosis a little bit, because I think people don't necessarily understand and they kind of maybe lump them together.
Yeah.
So tendonitis ends in the word itis. So itis is like an acute inflammation. So it's more of an acute response, meaning it just happened, right? Like your elbow's starting to bother you, say, oh, that's kind of bothering me. But for us, especially, we've all been training, dozens of years at this point. For us, it really isn't necessarily a tendonitis. It's what's more referred to as a tendinosis,
Mhm.
which is a chronic degeneration. So think about it like the tendon, and there's little ruptures inside the tendon. It's not like straight across, but little ruptures, sort of like a rope that's fraying a little bit.
Yes.
Now, we can't necessarily just completely let that tendon just heal. If you just sit there and let the tendon do nothing, it will actually never heal. Well, it will heal a little bit, but you'll still have that tendinosis. So what you have to do is you have to train the tendon properly, typically with isometrics to start. So basically an isometric is where you're using the muscle, but it's not actually moving. The body part isn't actually moving. The muscle is flexed and turned on, and the tendon is turned on, but it's not actually going anywhere. So that would be like, for example, let me think. We're going to do like a tricep push down, right? For like tricep tendinosis. And you're going to hold it all the way in the flexed out, locked out position, like just before the lock, you're going to hold it right there. That would be an isometric. And essentially what that does is the muscle pulls on the tendon, but it's pulling and holding on that tendon. So then you can, what's called like remodel or restructure is really the technical words you would use. But basically, you're going to start getting more blood flow to that tendon so that the tendon can actually take in some nutrients and start to remodel itself and actually start to heal. So the reason why like a muscle strain, like let's say you hurt your bicep, your tricep, whatever, it could take a week, 2 weeks, but it will heal relatively quickly because there's more blood flow to muscles. Yeah. Tendons and ligaments especially have much significantly less blood flow. That's why when you have a tendinous sprain, depending grade 1, 2, 3, it may take 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. Like you've heard some really bad sprains, like you're watching a football game, baseball game, basketball game. They're like, he's out for 3 months with a sprain. It's like, a sprain? What the hell? It's like, yeah, they take a long time to heal if it's really bad. So basically isometrics will start to help that. And then also eccentrics, which is where you go down really, really slowly, like flex up, slow down all the way. That will really work the tendon as well. So just a basic overview of kind of tendons right there. But really it comes down to like what your diagnosis is. I'm always against doctors that will just say, just rest, like just don't do that. Yeah. Because your average person, what are they going to do? They'll be like, forget that guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And then he's going to go do it anyway. That's what I would do. Because if I would do that, I assume most people would do the same thing. So I'm always in the boat of like, how do we modify things properly to where you can continue training, continue staying in your lifestyle, but modifying things to where we can start to make some progress. And it really depends on what the problem is. Just to touch on tendinosis again, I know Dom, you and I have talked about this before. I'm a big believer in the PRP injections. I've had like a dozen at this point. I love them personally. They really, really help me. I'm always somebody with a lot of golfer and tennis elbow, just because my elbows don't have a lot of range of motion, and I'm a giant meathead who just will crank on stuff even if it hurts, because why not? Of course, to go back to your point, I'm like, I'll just train through it. It's okay, But PRP definitely is a big help in that sense as well. But if you're somebody who has like tingling nerve issues, definitely have to see your chiropractor, X-rays, MRI. Really, you have to get a proper diagnosis. And now that I have more reach, I suppose, on social media, I get all the time people messaging me or commenting me like, Dr. Reilly, my shoulder hurts. What should I do? Or Dr. Reilly, my back's really hurting. What should I do? I'm like, well, you need to see a doctor and get a diagnosis. Like, I can't just tell you what to do. There's 50 things it could possibly be. So if you don't have a proper diagnosis, you can't really figure out what to do. So the first thing is get a real diagnosis.
100%. And I'll be honest, a lot of the questions I kind of embedded in here are from experiences that I'm having with clients where, hey, coach, my back hurts, my shoulder hurts, my wrist hurts, and they want to know what to do. And it's like, well, without an exam and an evaluation, no one can tell you what to do. Because what is actually wrong? And, is this actually what you think you're feeling? This localized pain might have very little to do what's happening in that area, and might be, the problem is upstream from there. We gotta do an evaluation. You gotta be able to figure out, okay, what's actually happening here. And then I'll be honest, a lot of times I'm like, well, I want to see what you're doing in the gym. Send me your training, your top set for every exercise. And it's like, oh, I bet you that's what's wrong. And so
most of the time it is for lifters.
Yeah.
There's some issue going on where, like, training basically, to put it in the most simplest form, is you're directing force through your body. That's really what it is. A bench press is putting force through your upper arm, and then it's supposed to go into your chest, and then you push through the bar. And if you are not directing the force properly, that 300 pounds, instead of going into your chest, is going to go into the pec tendon, the elbow, the wrist, whatever it is. So if you're even slightly off and you do that for 12 weeks straight, it's a lot of force into an area that shouldn't have that force. So a lot of times, usually for bodybuilders in general, it's usually your training that is causing the issue.
And so from there, we're going to go back to what James said. James, like, I'm 37. We're 37 years young, right? But 37 ain't 27. And 39 ain't 29. and so on, right? So I want to ask, because people, especially guys who we were all there when you're, teenager, 20s, mid 20s, training didn't look the same. You know, you got to understand that training is not going to look the same as you get older. The days of, putting, 4 or 5 or more on a flat bench, I'm never doing that anymore. I don't do that. Number one, I'm a bodybuilder, so that's big reason. And I mean, when I say on the bench, I mean free weight, flat bench, not Smith, no spot. I'm just gonna rip this thing and I'm gonna go. And it's like, yeah, those days are gone. The days of being stupid and doing one warm-up set before throwing something like that, those days are gone. It's important, I think, that people understand. I think you guys will all agree. I don't think any of us trained like we did when we were, teenagers, for sure.
You guys
I
don't max
imagine.
out on bench once a month still?
No, I couldn't tell you the last time I've done a 1 rep max on anything.
Right?
Years.
It's
Yeah,
still the most common question you get though from random people.
100%. Hey man, how much you bench? My usual answer, to be honest with you, I always just say not enough. That's it.
Not enough.
It's not enough.
That's always the answer. Not enough, man.
And so, you guys have any differing thoughts on that? Like, what does training look like past 30 and 35,
Yeah,
and so on?
I get this question a lot. So you guys made comments earlier about like, I'm pretty close to a show right now, right? And my progress and how I've done this off season. A lot of people have been asking me, what did you do? What did you do differently? And to be honest with you guys, and I'm not bullshitting, I train less.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I trained less. There were some weeks, and I'm not kidding, I trained maybe twice or 3 times a week, and that was it. Um, I took a lot of rest time this off season and recovery and whatnot, and that immensely helped me. And as opposed to when I was in college and I started this bodybuilding thing, training 6, 7 days a week in the gym, I don't need rest days, blah, blah. If you don't need a rest day by the time your rest day comes around, you're not training hard enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not doing enough. You're like, today is my rest day right now. And guys, I'm freaking exhausted from this week. And I needed this rest day today so bad, and I can feel it. Like, you have to know as you get older, I know I'm in my late 30s, right? I can't train like I did in my 20s. I can't train 6, 7 days a week. My happy medium's 4, 5 days a week
Yeah.
with 2 or 3 rest days because I can't do it like we used to do it. My elbows, my joints, my knees, my back, and as taller guys, you guys know with being tall makes us susceptible to those, Mike, these types of injuries and stuff. So, and it's good that we have Mike on because he could probably speak to that. But as tall guys, am I wrong in saying that we're more susceptible to this stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the mechanics usually it's a lot easier to put force into your spine, into your shoulders, whatever. Especially a lot of gym machines are not necessarily made for people like over 6 foot too. So some things yeah, they might be okay, but generally most machines are not really made for taller guys too. So we're trying to like fit our body into something that's not even really made for us all that well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a good point. That is a
But I
really good point.
completely agree with James as well, saying, that you even sometimes train 2 or 3 times a week. Like I always train 5 days a week. Like I always take 2 rest days off. But I know in my heart, if I only trained 4, I'd probably be a little better. I know that as a fact. I'm not going to do it because I'm freaking nuts. But I know if I did 4, I probably would be better for sure. And as you get better at bodybuilding and training, knowing how to take your sets to failure the right way and make the specific muscle fail, you don't need as much training. You just don't. Like you can, like a really good bodybuilder. I remember, I forget who it was. There was some old school bodybuilder talking about how him and another bodybuilder, they would train together and they would try to do the same set at the same time. And whoever failed first would win. That's how they thought about it. It was like whoever could get their body to fail quicker was better. So
That's
I was
awesome.
like, that's an interesting way to think about it. They're like, yeah, like the less work you have to do to make your body fail, the better. I don't have to put more stress into my joints, like my muscles failing. I'm good. Like the rest of my body's good. I'm not breaking down my body and breaking down the muscle. So I was like, that's an interesting way to think about it. I got to figure out who said it. It was some like 80s or 90s bodybuilder. I thought it was such an interesting concept. I've never heard anybody talk about it that way. I was like, wow, that's a mindset shift.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Phil Viz had he has a client and a professional who's very well known, who was training somebody. I can't remember the exact story, but he was training with somebody. He's like, listen, you can't do what he's doing. He's failing faster and his workout seems shorter, but he's getting the same amount, if not more work done than you are because he can connect and has higher neural drive than you do. And you're just not there yet. And I love that point because the more I learn, the more I train with people who can teach me more about those kinds of things and how to connect better and so on, the more I find it to be true. Uh, I had the same experience as you, James. Like the progress I did make this off season were most of it was in stuff that I did less of during the week. You know, so there's a lot to be said for as you develop greater efficiency, we'll call it, in training, then that recovery you allocate is gonna match that. So I did a lot more work on this, whatever this muscle group was. I need to give it enough time to recover. And if I'm more efficient at being able to do that, my response is gonna look different. And so sometimes people, you grew up on watching Ronnie Coleman train 6 days a week and hit everything twice a week at max, max effort. And so you think, well, that's what I'm going to do. But more isn't better. More is just more. And I know there are going to be guys out there who disagree with that, but I think that's honestly what time has tested to and proven to be the case. More is not necessarily better. It is just more. There might be times where more is better, but a lot of the times, from what I've seen, um, it ain't. Now, maybe more recovery is better, but that's probably reflective or indicative of something else that, you know, wasn't quite where it needed to be. But
I always like to
that's,
say more isn't better, the right amount is better.
yes,
Exactly.
yes,
Perfect way to put it.
And the right
yeah,
amount is different for everybody, but the
yeah,
right amount is better.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, unless, Joe, you got anything you want to add to that before I move on?
I mean, I completely agree. You get older, you have to kind of adapt your training, but at least for us, we've all been training consistently as we got older. We're bigger, we're stronger, we have better connection to our muscles. You don't need that much. And then like for me, one of the things that I try to do now on almost every on every move or exercise or workout is to pre-exhaust because I don't want to put 8 plates on the fucking hack squat. So I exhaust myself on leg extensions first, and I do adductors first to tire out my legs. And then when I get on the hack squat, I try to control the weight and squeeze as hard as I can, and I try to make the weight harder. I don't want to
Yes,
pick up a million plates and exhaust myself loading and unloading plates and stuff like that. But another thing I noticed is like I train with girls sometimes. They're smaller. They don't exhaust their bodies as hard as like when they go to failure, it's not as exhausting on their body as it is for us. They recover so much quicker. And I think it's kind of like the same thing. We've gotten bigger, we've gotten stronger. So like they might, the girls that I'll work out with, sometimes they'll do 5 working sets. I only need 2. I am toast after 2, but they're recovering 60 seconds later, so they'll just go again. Meanwhile, I'm on the ground like dry heaving for 5 minutes because I did one set of 10 reps to failure. But
yeah,
it's like I think that like as you get better, you get uh as you get bigger, you get better and smarter about the way you train. And like we were saying, your muscles fire better and you don't need as much. So,
I think that's the ideal, right? You want to
yeah.
see, that's what you should, to James's point about being a professional, that's kind of it. You should be
Hmm.
developing those things. Those things should be happening. And if they're not, and you're still the guy who, you're still the guy who's just, I'm going to max out every machine and then until I can't do anything more on it and go on to the next one, um, you haven't learned the lesson. You haven't learned what it means to
Hmm.
continue progressing and developing as a competitor, as an athlete, etc. So, with that being said, three of us on here are in prep. Thanks a lot, Joe. Could have been all
Yeah.
of us.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed me eating for the first 20 minutes of this podcast. So,
so, so three of us are in prep, and we've all done this obviously many times before. Um, I got this comes up where, man, I just don't look like what I thought I was going to look like as the person is going through prep. And I have to remind them, listen, you're probably going to look worse before you look better. We gotta take you to a place that allows us to continue removing all this fat, and we can't just refeed every time you don't like what the scale says or what you look like in the mirror because you're not full and pumped all the time. And it can be a real letdown, right? That first real cut that you do, whether it's to compete or just to look good, you find out as that person that you're probably, and this is the only way I can say this, I'm not trying to be offensive to anyone, but you're probably fatter than you think. And nobody wants to hear that shit. Sorry, nobody wants to hear that. And so, it's usually a matter of you got to set your expectations. And I think it still applies for us. It's like there are moments when I at least will get in my head during prep. When it gets to a certain point, I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't make enough progress, or I just don't look that good, or whatever it is. And you can't, you can't dwell in that place. It's whatever. But you have to understand that that is a part of the process. And I think for a lot of guys who are new, they look at themselves in the mirror and they, before they go into that down that road, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm thick, I'm jacked, I got all this muscle, and they for some reason think that fat is somehow going to turn into muscle, or that they don't realize it's layers on top of layers. And so when you peel that stuff off, what's underneath, you lost mass. You're not going to be that big anymore. And so they don't have these expectations and that harsh reality of a poor plan and unrealistic expectations hit. And from the competitor side, that might mean you got too fat in the off season, right? Where somebody is chasing the scale and they completely lose sight of their physique, right? And a great example of somebody who did this, I think, and I'm not every day. I don't see all of it. I think Joe did it right. Joe didn't go to a place of no return, right? When you sent us your pictures and when you posted stuff, I was like, he hit right where he needed to stop. He didn't go to, the land of 12 donuts
Deep
and
freeze.
two. Yeah, yes, I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it, but I saw him. The
Yeah.
first time I ever saw him was in his off season. He was handing out trophies on stage, and it
Yeah.
was his off season. And he looked like the Pillsbury Doughboy met the
Mhm.
Michelin Man, and they had some kind of fusion, and they turned into that. And it's like that dude was. uh
It worked for him, but
it
he's an
did.
anomaly.
It did.
So,
That's why we can say these things.
yeah.
He would agree. But
Yep.
I think nowadays we've all learned that okay, there is a point where you got to just say, okay, anything past this is just diminished returns. It's not going to be worth it, and it's
Mhm.
costing me growth in the way that I want. And so I wanted to kind of visit that point with you guys because we all so for Mike, me, James, we all left that just not that long ago, right? And are now in that prep phase going down. And Joe, you just finished a push phase essentially,
Yep.
and I'm assuming you guys are probably going to head into probably the next thing will be prep next year or towards the end of
Next year
this
we're
year.
gonna probably start prep maybe December at the earliest. It depends what shows we pick out for next
So
year. So
it would be cool to kind of get perspectives considering where we all are and have been in regard to that kind of prompt.
for me, I think the secret is get a coach that you trust and you respect because their eyes are always going to be unbiased. And, sometime you're going to be in your head, whether you're in the off season, whether you're in prep, you're always going to be in your head thinking that something doesn't look right. And that's when, having trust in your coach, knowing that, your weekly or bi-weekly check-ins that you're doing are keeping you in the place where they're supposed to be
Yeah.
is important. And then you don't have to stress about that. You just follow the plan. And that's kind of what I do,
Yeah.
every once in a while I'd ask him a question. I asked him, not too long ago. I was like, dude, do I have to stop training glutes? I feel like my ass is getting too big. And he's like, nope, you carry a lot of water and fat in them. Just keep training them. I was like, okay. And that's what I do. So
And
I don't
then
really
and then Joe's girlfriend was like, "Yeah, you keep training glutes."
know. Yep.
What do
So
you think, James?
Well, I think really what it is bodybuilding is seen and it is as an individual sport, right? Like we get on stage by ourselves, we're backstage pumping up by ourselves and everything like that, but there's a lot of people that help you get there. And a lot of the most successful people have had a good circle around them that helps them get there. So just like Joe said, I think you really need to have a coach that you absolutely trust. And you need to have, I'm not saying you need to have a partner, but like it makes it so much easier when you have someone in your life who understands what you're going through and supports what you're going through and has your back. And again, I've gotten questions so far this prep for me of what's been the big difference. And I told you guys that before, but one of the other things is I finally have the right people around me. I finally have the right circle and the right environment. And when you're actually in a good place in your life, it makes prep, which is a very difficult process, slightly less difficult. And if you're in an opposite place where you're in a bad spot in your life and you have a lot of garbage going on, it's not good, it's going to make that difficult process that much more difficult. So I think having the right people around you, especially a coach, especially a partner, if you have one, you can't replace that.
mhm.
You got any thoughts, Mike, on the whole idea of? I guess there was a lot of kind of stuff to unpack there, but kind
So
of
the
going to.
first part, you talked about, being fatter than you think or not having as much muscle as you think in your first cut. So
Yeah.
especially for amateurs, something I see across the board just through my entire time bodybuilding, especially with amateurs, is I don't think they're very honest with themselves in their check-in photos. They might take their check-in photos at the gym with a pump with great lighting, and like
Yeah.
that's what they think they look like all the time and will look like on stage, and you won't. You will be much more closely on stage what you look like. Wake up, take a piss, put on your ring light, and walk in front of your black backdrop and do check-in photos fasted. Like that is what you'll look like on stage. So you have to really be honest with yourself, I think, early on, and do your check-in photos that way and assess your physique that way. The
Yeah.
gym stuff with nice lighting, that's just like for the love of bodybuilding. But like as a competitor, you have to do it, fasted in the morning. Like those are your real check-in photos. That's what your physique really looks like. You'll
Yeah.
look more like that on stage. So I think that, especially for early competitors, is really important because it's kind of like it's a big hit to your ego the first time you see a real check-in photo. You're like, damn, I kind of don't look very good. Like, yeah, you probably don't. Like it's your first show. You're not going to look that good.
Yeah.
So I think that's important early on. But as a professional, um, I, no matter how good you are, I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of Chris Bumstead stuff. I mean, geez, when he was 5-time Mr. Olympia, like sometimes he's posting videos where he's like emotional talking about how like he doesn't know if he's going to be able to do it. I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, like Mr. Olympia is saying that. Like everybody goes through those phases where you're like, did I make progress? Did I not? Like Am I going to be my best? I'm really hurting today. Like all the emotions, especially during bodybuilding with all the other aspects that go into professional bodybuilding that can kind of
Yeah.
mess with your psyche, of course. Those things can come into play as well. But that's just kind of part of the process. And you're going to have those days where you feel amazing. You're like, oh my God, I look so good. And days where you're like, I look terrible. And I think it's important, like you said, to have good people around you. I'm very fortunate with my wife is a professional bodybuilder as well. And like, it's cool because she understands and knows exactly what I mean, and I understand what she's talking about like immediately. I don't have to like explain to her, that like I had a bad check. I didn't like my check-in this morning. People would be like, "What are you talking about?" She's like,
Yeah.
like she gets it. So having a support system is really, really important around you, and it's honestly like it's kind of easy to have a support system nowadays because of social media. Like I would say 99% of people I've met through bodybuilding are so supportive and nice. Like I've met like maybe one or two people that I was like, they're not really the nicest, but most people are so nice and supportive. Like
Yeah.
anytime you reach out to anybody, they're super nice and supportive. And I think it's cool too how like you can kind of prep with people, even though you don't live in the same state. It's like we kind of update each other and see everything. So it kind of gives you a little bit of motivation to see other people prepping at the same time too. And other people are suffering. And I don't like to call it suffering because like we choose to do this, It's
Yeah.
like and I always go back to the quote, like you suffer more in your head than you do in reality.
Yes.
So I try to remember that if I'm like suffering about something, I'm like, is this in my head or is this in reality? Like, am I really suffering or am I just kind of making this bigger than it really is? And that always helps me if I'm having a bad moment or something or a bad day.
Yeah.
So kind of my take on it.
I like that. I like that, especially that last point you ended with. Are you really suffering? Just, and you the way you phrased something else, it's having that barometer essentially. That's really where I think everybody's kind of hitting that here. And I've got the same, I've had the same experience. Um, whether it's through my coach or through Nate, who's a friend, as well as a assistant coach with Chris, or my wife, who has been here for the entire journey. My journey started as a bodybuilder, competitive bodybuilder at 23, and she's been here since well before that. And so, I mean, just this week, she's like, "Give me your phone. Let me see your check-in." It's like, okay. So she's like, "Yeah, I know where you are. I know what's going on in your head. Just stop and whatever." And so it's yeah, having something and someone to help as to be a gauge. And sometimes it's just looking back and seeing, oh, that's where I was 6 months ago or a year ago or whatever, and realizing, oh, I guess, when I look at it now, I don't look the same. I do look better or whatever. And I think that's probably the healthiest way to approach it because let's be honest, like we mentioned earlier, there's 1,000+ classic physique guys. To be the best out of all of them, you have to beat everyone. And the statistically, the probability of you being able to do that is very small. So for me, I'm like, you know what? I can't let anybody live rent free in my head. It's me versus me. I can't control who's going to show up at a show. I can't control the progress of anybody else. I can't do any of that stuff. I have to make this about what was my last look. And if I didn't improve on that, then yeah, that's on me. And now it's what am I going to do about that? And having those kind of gauges and those people around you definitely makes it a lot easier to do.
Here's an interesting concept I've always thought about. Like, would you rather place higher but know you didn't look as good as your last show, or place worse but know you looked your best? Like,
Yeah,
that's an interesting thing to think about too. You know,
that's
Yeah. Do you have
yeah.
one more
because you get
show
to tell
after?
everybody, oh, I used to be, I got 12th last show, I got third or fourth this show. You'd love to tell everybody that, but like, if you looked a lot better when you were 12th, when you
Yeah,
post your photos, but he didn't look as good. Like, what's better? It's an interesting way to think about
that's
it.
oh man, that's one of those like shots to the ego. It's like because like you said, are you gonna post that in the same grid that your other show was in that you looked way better. Uh,
Right.
yeah,
That's why I always
that's
think that like you can only really compare against yourself because there
yeah,
might be 10 Olympians that show up at the top 10 at the Olympia and you get 11th. You're like, damn, I got 11th. They're like, one guy that's really, really good shows up and you got second. It's like, damn, I got second place. Like, yeah, but you didn't look as good as when you got 11th. So
yeah,
like that's really the only way you can really gauge it is how you look against yourself, really.
yeah, yeah. I like that. And on that on that point, we talked about kind of starting this off, the whole structure and process to qualify for the Olympia has changed. You can't just win a show and automatically qualify. And what do you guys, I'm curious how you guys look at this. What kind of physiques do we see qualifying for the O and winning these shows? And not including the points part because we don't know yet, right? We don't know exactly who's going to qualify based off points. We have probably a good idea for some folks, but if you're looking at it from a purely physique standpoint, what classic physique look is what do you think is the look that you got to bring? Is it? I'll start this off to kind of cage this a little bit. I think generally speaking, the balanced physique in classic does a lot better than the physique that is like piecemeal together, right? Where you got a guy who has crazy legs but no chest or no shoulders or whatever. Or you got a guy who has an awesome back, okay legs, okay arms. You know, that's kind of what I'm getting at. What physique does the best in this division? Because we see a lot of freaks show up. When I say freaks, I mean how can I say this? Guys who show up with freaky freaking body parts, and that's what everybody calls out. And like, oh, and nobody's going to beat him from here. And it's like, yeah, but what about the rest? And you wonder, okay, what do I need to bring to beat that?
Well, I'll start it, and I just saw in a pro show in person, the Indy Pro, and the top three of that show, um, two of those guys look like open guys to
Yeah,
me in person, and we're talking about Sam who won, and we're talking about Tom Stanley from Australia
yeah, yeah,
who arguably could have won, but they were the top two. Um, in person, these guys look like open guys.
yeah,
And I think this might be a controversial comment, but it is what it is. I think the most successful guys in Classic are bordering on open. And I say that because if you think about the most successful guys in Classic, we're talking about Ramon Dino, we're talking about Mike Sommerfeld, we're talking about Wesley Vissers. Okay. I just named three guys right now that if they really wanted to, they could be like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to open. I'm going to blow this thing out and we're going to do this, exactly. No cap, no chains. Let's do it. I got another guy off the top of my head, Kellen Wilson. He is a monster. He is huge. And I don't know how somebody like that makes the weight cap. No offense to him. It's a respect thing, actually. The amount of density that these guys have, relative to their height and everything, they all could go open. And you've seen guys like Urs and, people like that go make that open leap. So unfortunately for guys like us who are taller, unless you absolutely max out your weight cap where it's like you are scared of even making weight at the show, it's going to be hard for taller guys like us to compete with people who are dense, looking like they're bordering on the open,
yeah,
because those are the guys that currently are winning.
To add to that point, what I was going to say before you even said anything is it's a conditioning show in classic. And the reason it's because it's a byproduct of this is bodybuilding. Those guys that are bigger are winning because they really are probably 20 pounds over their weight cap when they're stage ready and they're killing themselves making weight and they're the most peeled guys on stage and the biggest guys on stage.
Yeah.
To talk about the indie show, I did Toronto Pro at my first show, and Sam was there, and because Sam won indie, right?
Sam won.
Um, Dude, his quads. Oh my god,
Mhm.
he's the Tom Platt. He's the modern day Tom Platz. I think his quads are freaky big, like they're stupid big. And to see him in person, I was like, holy shit, dude, insane quads. But what I've noticed across the board, kind of like Don, like you were saying, um, no, like the top guys don't have weaknesses. They might have a standout body part, but like nothing is significantly better or worse than another. Like I think one of the reasons why, like when you look at Wesley, who's one of the best physiques in the world, one of the reasons why his legs look so much smaller, his legs are not small, he has huge legs. But because his upper body is so much better than his legs, it makes them look worse than they are.
Yeah.
So when somebody looks at his physique, they go, his legs are a real weak point. When in actuality, they're really not that weak. It's just in comparison to his upper body, they look so much weaker. So sometimes having a really standout body part can actually make your physique look worse in a
Yeah.
competitive sense. Like if you have a massive arms and your chest and shoulders and legs are maybe not as good, it might make them look worse than they really are. So I think a lot of times, like judges, sometimes what they'll look at first is who has the least amount of weaknesses. Then they'll judge from there.
Yeah. That's kind of where my head was. It's the complete physique beats the patchwork quilt kind of physique, right? Where the pieces are there, they just kind of the proportions aren't right. And it's hard though, because I think I think what James said is right. Right? These guys who you see, well, there's exceptions, right? Terrence is probably an exception.
Yeah,
But
he's under the
it,
cap.
I competed against Tom at Oklahoma Pro, and I remember seeing him, and I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I was like, well, I honestly thought he was going to win. And so, and I also, kind of to James's point earlier as well, I arguably thought he was going to win Indy as well, to be honest. So, but I wasn't there, but I was just looking at it from online. And so, yeah, I think it's tough, but at the end, if I had to narrow it down and say the more complete physique tends to draw the eye at the end of the day for the judge. Because what happens is they're like, okay, well, let's compare these two guys now. Because yeah, this guy, oh my gosh. But something about this guy, it's like every time I turn him around and I look at another pose, it's everything's there. And when you start comparing the two, now you gotta face this decision. And when I look at that at, like, let's say Pittsburgh Pro last year, it was Terrence. And it wasn't because Terrence had freaky parts. It was because he was facing really thick, big guys. The same thing again at New York Pro. And he pulls it off because he's the most balanced. And obviously he can pose like nobody's business. So presenting is a whole nother story. But um, there's some other guys that come to mind as well, like Diego. He has an awesome back. He has a really awesome back. But I would argue that the way he presents his physique makes it look a little bit more complete. But there are things that are obviously he's going to have to bring up to do that to make it more complete. But that's why these guys do so well. I kind of that's my take anyway, and I think it kind of goes to the point of the whole Aristotle quote, right? It's like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and that's bodybuilding in my mind. That's what maybe that's just what I want it to be. And so, yeah, it's sometimes what that translates into though sucks, because who doesn't want bigger arms? Who doesn't want bigger quads? And what might be needed for your physique, and maybe based on whatever the judges are saying, is you don't need any more of this, you need more of that. You're like, "Yeah, I want to train this, I want bigger of this." And it's like, well, you can do that, and you will continue to place where you're placing or worse. And so it's like there's this sense of you got to have enough humility to accept maybe that what you're seeing or maybe what you want isn't necessarily what you gotta get more of. You gotta do what, you gotta be able to take that counsel, so to speak, and digest it and execute.
Sometimes the physique that you want to look like is different than the physique that will do better on stage.
Yeah.
Bingo.
You know, that's kind of it too. You know, as a
Yeah.
competitive bodybuilder, there's certain things you want more than just as a bodybuilder. This is how I want to look like.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to kind of choose.
Cedric McMillan is the first thing that comes to mind. He made it very clear. He's like, I know what the judges are saying. I know what the people out there are saying. You need to come in more conditioned, or you need to come in a little bit more like this. He's like, but I know what I want to look like. And I want to look like that 70s, 80s bodybuilder, which is just more size. And so for him, when he won the Arnold and Arnold said what he said to him, that was his win. That was his big thing. That's what he wanted. And I think that yeah, the feedback was probably accurate. If he had come in harder and leaner, he probably would have done even better. But it was, this is what I want to look like. And so for him, no problem. He's like, oh, I'm still a winning bodybuilder and open, and I get to look like what I want to look like. And I'm cool with maybe not going even further because that's not what the judges want to see. So it's kind of one of those things. You got to decide what it is you really want. And do you care about progressing in the sport in terms of placings, or you want to look a certain way and that's what you're going to present.
Yep.
So I know we're running on time. So man, I miss you guys so much. I just want to talk to you all the time and talk to you more. So I'm gonna skip some of this stuff and maybe we'll save it for another time. And I'm gonna end it. Well, I'm gonna ask you guys. Well, you know what, Mike, you're the celebrity special guest.
All
So
right, all right.
I want you to tell me, is there anything that you want to cover or talk about or ask or whatever?
Let's see. Anything I want to cover? Well, first of all, I could talk obviously about training all day. I love it, and that's literally
Yeah.
what I do. It's just talk about training with dozens of people. It's not what I do all day. I mean, like you can see, like if you look at my phone, the amount of voice memos I have over like 1,000 voice memos just from sending to clients and stuff.
Oh
If
my
you look at my
gosh.
notes app, it's just like scroll. I mean, there's got to be at least 1,000 different things. Like it's funny because I'm actually very introverted. I don't come off that way, but like in general, I like to be alone and be in my own thoughts in my own head. And when I'm training, I'll just like pull up my phone and just start typing like different things I think about bodybuilding or training, and just write them all in there, and maybe
Yeah.
eventually make like an Instagram post or whatever about it. But obviously, I just love training. I can talk about it all day, man. Like anything we want to talk about.
All right, how do you
Let's see.
train? How do you train with pain? How do you train with pain? That's my question
How
for
do I train with pain? So I guess there's a difference. You have to differentiate. Is it a pain that is like, are you hurt or injured? That's
you.
kind
Right.
of the
So that's the pain we're talking about. If you have joint
yeah.
pain or tendon pain, and I know what I think the answer is, but I want people to hear it from you, because there's probably very
Right.
few other people to hear it from that are going to give you the right answer.
So I think the question is like do you have to continue to train because this is what you do and what you love, or is it just like, oh, I'm just a weekend warrior, and like, yeah, maybe that's a different answer for them. But
Yeah.
for like as a competitive bodybuilder who like, hey, your job is to train, you have to train if you want to be a bodybuilder. So there's a difference between being actually injured. So if you have an injury, right, you have a disc herniation, you have a strain or a sprain that is like needs legitimate like not using the muscle to actually heal. That's one thing. But I think training you can still train properly and modify things. So you
Yeah.
have to look at, am I using the muscle properly? Is the first thing. Do I have to change the way I am training? Am I putting force into the muscle the wrong way or into the joint the wrong way? So first is how good is my actual technique? Because I'll have people say, oh, like, my shoulders hurting, whatever. My technique's totally fine. I'm like, I promise you, your technique's not fine because my technique's not fine. And I think I have pretty good technique. I can still improve mine. So you can definitely still improve yours. Like, there are people say like, I've been training 6 months. Like I'm good on the training. I know my technique. I'm like, no, you don't. You do not know the technique. Like you know so little that you think you know, but you really don't know.
Yeah.
So like, that's the first thing. So always reassess the technique on everything. That's the first part. Then from there, it's is it an issue in terms of volume? Are you just doing too much? So do we need to break down the volume a little bit? Do we need to take more rest days? Do you need to change your split to have more focus on recovery? And then other things like supplements. How inflammatory is your diet? Are you eating a lot of inflammatory foods? Do we need some more anti-inflammatory type diet? Maybe different oils that you're using, adding turmeric, fish oil, things along those lines as well. So really, it comes down to what's the problem and how do we address it the right way. I think the answer is usually modifying,
Yeah.
but it's of course it's like at the end of the day, the answer is it
It
depends.
depends. Yeah.
Yeah, like all things, it depends.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's one of those things that I hear from the few clients that I coach, like, hey, I'm having this pain. I'm just going to do this. Like, well, wait. We got to figure out what kind of pain are we talking about here? If this is a muscle pain versus is this a joint pain? Is this a tendon issue? What is this? And then assess from there. Because one of the things that I hate hearing is that as soon as somebody gets any kind of pain, it's just stop everything. And it's like, actually, that might not be the right answer. And it may be that we need to do a little bit more of a active recovery kind of thing, or maybe it needs to be, like you said, we're just going to modify some things. It doesn't mean we have to stop everything because that might actually slow the recovery down. So yeah, I like that, man. I will stop us here. I'll save some of this other stuff for next time because I got a long list of things. I appreciate it, guys. This was cool. This was fun. And until next time, and I'll see you guys in the DMs.